Hello, this is Professor Baswhite. Today we will look at the graph of secant. To draw a graph of secant, you need to think of the cosine function because secant is simply 1 over cosine. So let's go to our cosine function. So make sure that you watch this video of cosine before you watch secant video. All right. So let's go and let's look at the cosine. I know that the cosine has a period of 2 pi, and in the middle that's pi. Middle of pi is pi over 2. Middle of this is 3 pi over 2. And I just happen to remember what cosine looks like. 1, negative 1. You can think of your unit circle if you want to. Here is the graph of cosine. All right. Since your secant is simply 1 over cosine, so it's going to be 1 over 1 areas. It's going to be the same. But what will happen is when you have cosine as 0, it's going to blow up. But the sign of it, it's going to stay the same. So in other words, this is going to be here. It's going to blow up here, so it's going to stay positive. And it's going to blow up here. It has to go that way. And here it is. So draw the cosine always first. And then kind of draw the red. So the red is simply the secant x. Okay. Now, let's go and let's try to draw this function. Y equals negative 2 secant 1/2 x plus pi minus 1. So let's look at what it does. I know that the secant has a period of 2 pi. This number in front of the parentheses is going to change that. You used to have 2 pi. Now you're going to divide by that number. So you have your period of 4 pi. Okay, what this will do, the number in front of secant, it's going to stretch it. So it's going to move everything up. You know, at 1, it was 1, and it's going to go up to 2. It's going to stretch. What this will do, it's going to reflect this way. What this will do, it's going to provide a phase shift. Since it's plus, it's always reverse, remember? So plus, that means it's going to move left by pi. And the last one, this guy, that's going to move the whole thing down by 1. Okay, now that I have all this, so I'm going to start moving things around a little bit. So let's start with the phase shift. I mean, not phase shift. Let's start with the period. I always start with the period. So it used to be, my period used to be 2 pi. Now my period is going to be twice as big, 4 pi. Okay, so let's look at it. The middle of 2 pi is going to be pi, and the middle of that is going to be 3 pi. And this thing is going to have period of 4 pi. All right, so remember how this was. So it's going to kind of get fatter, 1 and negative 1. So this thing is going to get fatter that way. And it's going to go down, oops, that way. And it is going to go down that way. So this is the picture of y equals secant of 1/2 x. Okay. Now that I have that picture, what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a phase shift. So let's do this one. Y equals secant of 1/2 x plus pi. Okay? Remember how that works? It used to be at here at 4 pi. It's going to move to 3 pi. And this used to be 2 pi. It's going to move to pi. And it used to be at 0, so it's going to move to the left by negative pi. So when I move everything to the left by pi, we're going to get some like this. Here's at 1 and negative 1. So this thing is going to move to the left. The pi is going to move to 0. And the middle, this used to be at 2 pi. So it's going to be at pi. And this used to be at 3 pi. It's going to be at 2 pi. And this used to be right here. Now it's going to go up here. And this point will move simply to 3 pi. So this thing, let's do it in color. This red thing is secant 1/2 x plus pi. Okay? Now that I have that, what we're going to do, we are going to multiply this by -2. Okay? What does that mean? So when I multiply everything by -2, it's going to reflect and it's going to be up twice. So in other words, it's kind of hard to see, but let's try it. I'm going to draw this thing one more time. So this is going to go from 3 pi, 2 pi, pi, negative pi. So when you multiply this by 2, so let's write that down. What will happen to this -1 is going to go down to -2. And this is going to go up to 2. Okay? And then you want to reverse that at the end. So, okay, how is that going to work? So let's put that at -1, -2. This is at 1, and this is at 2. So this thing used to be at 1. You multiply by 2 up here, but you go to negative now. So this is going to go to here and go down. Okay? Now, what will happen to this guy? So it used to be upside down. Now it's going to be right side up. And that -1 is going to move to 2. Okay? So it's going to look like this. And what will happen to this guy? And it is going to be at, again, like that. Oops. It's hard to do this. And it's going to end up at -2. It used to be at 1. Now it moved to -2. So let's do this in blue. So it's going to be here, down, and up, and then down here. All right. Now what will happen to the very last thing? I think I may even do it here. I will do it in green. Y equals -2 secant 1/2 x plus pi -1. What will -1 do? It's going to simply move everything down one step. So this -2 will go down to -3. All right? And that 2 is going to move down to 1. And this -2 will move down to -3. So the final product is simply that green graph. And then you can actually label these things when you do it in a test and use different colors just to avoid confusion.